What does it mean to be a man in today's evolving world? How do we as men not only step up as men in this world, but transform the definition of masculinity itself? To be the lovers, the heroes, and the role models that the world so desperately craves. How do we begin to recreate our connection to manhood? This is that movement. We are ushering in a new generation of men and a new definition of masculine power to radically transform your sex life, your love life, your work life, and your world. I am Destin Garrick, and this is The Evolved Masculine, redefining sex, power, and success. We're doing this podcast this week from, not Sydney, Byron Bay, Australia. I'm here for the Taste of Love Festival with my beloved Ellie. And this is came out of a Tantra-based conference. And it's a festival now focused on sexuality, intimacy, relationship, connection. And, right up my alley. They flew us out. They've been taking really good care of us. We're highly featured for this, including running the main Saturday night portion of the event. We talked about this in one of the past episodes. This is on our Saturday night event called Sexploration, a night of adoration and devotion. So we're really stoked about that. I'll be doing my download on the Evolved Masculine, and just really stoked about the whole experience, being immersed amongst 300 people who are all there to evolve around sex, around male-female relating, around understanding themselves deeper and their spiritual path. The stuff that I'm really into. So it's already been fantastic, and the festival itself hasn't even started yet. Ellie and I have been having phenomenal experiences, including ones I probably shouldn't be talking about publicly, but they were hot, so that's been good. And I love the ways in which 3 years in, I think that there's this idea that, especially as men, we really is drilled into us that, new, variety, novelty. That not only is that exciting for us as men, but that's what we're supposed to be most after, really. It's what makes you a man, right? And don't get me wrong, I spent 7 years as the erotic rock star. I know a thing about novelty and variety when it comes to women and sex and all of that, but I gotta say, it really does feel that our 3 years into this relationship is just the start. I'm so in love with the depth that we keep cultivating. It's these new layers of understanding of one another, these new even our sex life keeps finding new areas to explore together, new experiences, and areas where even early on it's like, oh, this is going to be a problem, smoothed out, and now, oh wait, that's actually a strong suit in our relationship now. Or some area of our sex life together is maybe initially I may have unconsciously, certainly not vocally, compared to a previous woman in my life, oh yeah, we've got this, but oh, I really miss this with so and so. Clearly I do not recommend speaking that one out loud, but I think that what I've experienced with this relationship and with this level of commitment is that everything doesn't have to happen at once. And that's one of the beautiful things I'm finding about this idea of life partnership, life commitment, is things happen in phases. Things come around. It's we have all these different chapters in our relating already, and things that were more difficult in certain parts of the relationship become easier in others. Things that weren't there now are there. Things that were there now aren't. And I'm really in love with the depth and the way that things just continue to evolve over time. and the knowingness, both the knowing of another being, a woman on her life path over such a long time. I don't even just mean the 3 years, like the 13 that I've known her, and the being seen, the feeling like here's this woman who has known me through so much, through my light, through my dark, through all of the craziness of my life. And believe me, my life has been fucking crazy. And just allowing myself to be known so deeply. It's vulnerable, but it's fucking powerful. I'm gonna say one more thing on this because I don't know where this came from, other than I'm really in a wonderful state with her right now, and it makes it wonderful to talk about. But there's this way in which I think that I always really longed to feel understood, and I'd always been the weirdo, you know? I've always been strange, unusual, odd, and no one's gonna understand me. No one can handle me. Not all of me. Maybe I can share these parts of me. Or during my erotic rock star years, you know, I created myself as a fantasy figure for women, and I did it really well. Problem is, while I was able to find these parts of me that were awesome and can show up in all these really sexy and erotic and creating these powerful experiences way, and I'm sure that there are those listening who are like, yeah, I feel so bad for you. But at the same time, it's like, I could do all of that, but I'm more than that too. You know? Yeah, I can be incredibly fucking strong and present and all that, but I can also be weak. I can also fuck up. I can also do the totally wrong thing in the moment. And, I think that part of my evolution beyond my erotic rock star years has been that full embracing of all of my humanity. Not from a place of complacency of, oh, well, this is just how I am. I'm a fuck up too. And so let me just, revel in my fucked upness. No, it's like we can, it's like you can go to the gym because you hate yourself. You can go to the gym because you love yourself. So it's just been... I've never felt so fully seen and so fully loved. And it really is a life-changing experience. So I share this with you, not so much to brag, but to really be a voice of possibility, because I think particularly men don't generally hear that story from other men. Especially men who are, quote-unquote, teaching other men about women and sex. That's not the story. But, hey, it's my story. Take what you will from it. Not the intro I was planning on giving, but fuck it. So I'm here today with Dane Tomas. Dane's an Australian bloke, and I'm not even going to try to do my Aussie accent because it doesn't work. But I think it's been at least a few years that we've been just kind of on each other's radars from across the planet. Really been, I think he first came into my awareness through his former partner, or whatever, Vanessa, who, what's her last name?
Florence.
Thank you. I knew that. Vanessa Florence, who does some incredible work as well, particularly with women and empowerment through sensuality and dance and amongst many other things. But I definitely, first of all, the fact that he was her partner first had me pay attention, because I've definitely learned that you can tell a lot by a man by the woman that he's with, and particularly when there are certain women who are just committed and deep on their own personal and spiritual evolutionary path, who are also very potent in their own being in the world. Women like that, if the man she's going to choose to be with, he's got to have something going on. So I paid attention first from that. And then I see the overlaps. I see his work with his depth with NLP, which seems to exceed my own, honestly. This just journey with this work that he's developed, that he calls the spiral. which I'm going to want to hear more about, as well as all the work that he's done and been doing with men. And so I knew in coming out here this time that he was somebody that I wanted to connect with, and even more so when I found, he's going to be in Byron Bay. So we're lucky enough to have us on our show, and welcome Dane Tomas.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
We're getting close because we're doing this via an iPhone today because I don't have my studio with me, and we're gonna make it work.
It's like lo-fi, but it's like better than 20 years ago. It's like way ahead of
It's like better than the best of then.
Yeah.
It's our lo-fi now.
We're roughing it,
Yeah, and you may also hear the crickets and cars passing by, just to allow it to be create atmosphere.
Just imagine attractive tourists with very little clothes on, and it'll make it okay.
I will say there are quite a few very beautiful people around here.
Yeah, that happens.
Ellie and I are really notice how relaxed people in Byron seem. We live in the U.S. and particularly the world that we live in. It just seems like people carry a lot of stress, and everybody's busy, so busy all the time, overloaded with too much, and you can feel it.
Yeah.
And I can really feel it being here, and how it's not that.
No, it's like you're moving through honey. Especially if you try to book an appointment with someone, they're like, oh yeah, I'll be there, and then they kind of gradually coalesce to the destination over a period of time, but it might not be like clock time accurate.
So let's just jump right in. You do this work around the integrated man. First of all, what does that phrase mean to you, and how did you get into working with men in the first place?
It's a good question. So the integrated man brand, if you like, kind of popped on my radar in about the beginning of 2013. Before that, I'd been interested in all kinds of different threads of Tantra, even kind of the pickup scene, then kind of more traditional men's work and men's circles and initiation. And I guess I'd just been trying to pick up bits and pieces for myself to become more whole and more complete over, let's say, 15 years, 15, maybe 20 years even. And just wanting, without being able to articulate it back then, to feel more complete. I think that's what I was after. And by the time 2014 rocked around, I was already running a bunch of offerings around Spiral and the other stuff that I was doing, and there was room for something. I wanted to do something else that wasn't for everyone, and it wasn't a sex thing, and it wasn't a how to meet girls thing, and I was like, I want to deepen in this area, so why don't I run some man stuff, which is kind of cute in a way, because I didn't know a lot of what I know now. I just kind of jumped into it and was like, fuck it, I'll put a program together and I'll learn it from selling it to other people. That's how you learn things, right? And created the integrated man and built an archetype based model of 7 masculine archetypes and a bunch of personal development stuff, a bunch of spiritual practice, some embodiment stuff, and kind of lumped it all together into this package of this 8-week program called the Integrated Man. And they rocked. They were really potent. So we ran it again, and me and the men that were in both those programs I'm still in connection with pretty much all of those guys now, and it just sort of formed this beginning of a body of work. So the book for that is going to come out later this year, in April this year, and it's like the integrated man idea is really not even how do we become more whole, but how do we recognize that we're already whole is a better frame around it, I guess. So it's really is about wholeness and completeness and depth, I guess, is the sort of what I want those words to kind of indicate for men.
So when you speak of being whole and recognizing we are already whole, say more. What does that mean?
Well, like everyone, my personal journey my philosophy has shifted multiple times along the last 20 years or whatever, and I think a lot of the narrative, I feel like there's a masculinity narrative that's coming more and more strongly into the world. Like I realize men's work has been kicking around since probably the 70s or whatever, but I feel like there's something coming in more mainstream globally as far as I can see now.
Seems to be.
It seems, right? And it's great. I'm happy that's happening, but my general perception is a lot of it is the solutions and the offerings are, this is what you should be. If you learn this skill, then you'll be good. You know, if you can do this to a woman, then you'll be worthwhile. If you can handle this part of your life, then you'll be somebody. And it's like, I do believe in skill acquisition. Like, I've spent a lot of my life trying to get good at certain things. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. Obviously, that's valuable. But a bit like you said about why do you go to the gym, you know, you can go because you hate yourself and you're sick of being a fat, horrible piece of shit. Or you can be like, oh, I want to develop what I have. I've got this amazing body, and wouldn't it be great to be at my full potential, and how amazing. And this idea that you don't have to learn how to be a man. You're a fucking man. You know, it's very counter to a lot of what I see out there. It's like, as a lot of this stuff comes up, a lot of the learnings that I've had have been in relation to women. And one of the things I found was I could learn this stuff and I do the stuff, whether we're talking a tantric skill or whether we're talking some embodiment practice or some fucking corny psychological trick, or, you know, something that's going to make me better, and I do the thing and maybe it gets me somewhere or maybe it doesn't. But so often when I would forget any of it and just be relaxed in myself, I would get some feedback like, oh, you're so masculine today. I'm like, masculine? Like, I was crying this morning. Like, why would she say that? That doesn't add up to all the stuff I've learned, you know? Yeah. I didn't do any kickboxing. I didn't meditate for an hour. I didn't do my Uddiyana Bandhas. You know, why does she think I'm more masculine? And it's like, because you're just rested in yourself today. And I was like, okay. So what that tells me is her response isn't gauging how great my magical skills are, which seems to be this obsession of men, you know, like, I've got bow skills, I've got arrow shooting skills, I can build a business. It's like, yeah, it is important. However, it's your beingness coming through that is really the power, right?
Yes.
And nobody doesn't have access to that. Even if you're like some nerdy dude who stammers over your words, like, when you stop being in your head and running at 100 miles an hour, you still have an essence, and your essence is powerful, and it is what it is. And, you know, no amount of David Data practices or yoga or whatever is going to change your essence, in my opinion. So
it sounds like your work is in helping men get in touch with that essence and relax further into that essence.
Yeah,
accurate.
Yeah, it's fairly accurate. And, you know, the integrated man started with all these archetypes of, okay, we're going to step into the beast and we're going to bring in this animal power. We're going to step into warrior and we'll bring this focus. And those things are still kind of important parts of the work. But almost as an aside, like, I didn't even know anything about it. I just threw, and we'll do men's circles every week just for something extra to throw in the package to make it look like I'm giving more value, you know? I got to chuck something else in there to bulk it out, you know? And the circles were the thing. We did all these amazing practices, and we climbed off cliffs, and we did erotic temple stuff with women, and we fucking faced our death. We did all this cool stuff, and it was really powerful, and a lot of peak states, and so on and so on. But the fact that over 8 weeks we did 8 men's circles to debrief all those experiences, it was in the circles that I saw, like, you know, like, there's these 12 dudes, and ranging in the second course, I think it was like youngest guy 22, oldest guy like 55, 56. And there's just this sharing of essence. It wasn't that you learn a new skill. It wasn't that you finally did this or did that. It was like, we are all rested in something, and there's a whole lot of conditioning and culture around what a man is that we may never be able to unpack beyond that. Like, culture goes so deep. How do you ever know where you know, the whole nature-nurture argument, it's like, how would you ever definitively know? Like, men have been doing this since caveman times, and women have been doing this, so that's all ingrained into us. This idea of, you know, sexual polarity, and we have an essence that is masculine or feminine. I used to believe, and I'm starting to not think that anymore.
What changed there?
A lot of Zen practice, a lot of sitting kind of stuff. Not a lot of Zen, a little bit of Zen practice. I've got, you know, I'm like this dude who's sitting around for 25 years. That's a lot of Zen. I mean, like, a lot more moving towards being oriented practices that one by one have revealed, like, in my fullness, I'm just I just am what I am. And whether I burst into tears or punch you in the face, we can categorize, well, that was very masculine, well, that was a little bit feminine. And it's like, it sort of feels like we're trying to retrofit our cultural conditioning to what we're looking at and give it a label. Whereas I used to wholeheartedly just feel like, well, yeah, I'm masculine because I'm present and I'm such and I'm such. And it's like, I just feel like when you sit into your deepest essence, it just is what it is. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I get that on one level.
Yeah.
This whole. I've also had my own interesting journey around David Data's work. As our pre-recording conversation speaks of you
Pizza
as
conversation.
well.
Yeah.
And it's and his notions around your core masculine or core feminine essence, like I get all of that. I do.
Yeah.
And this idea of like, well, you don't need to learn how to be a man. You just are a man. Yeah, but we're also all kind of fucked up by our conditioning.
Yes.
You know, so it's not just like, oh well, it's just you are how you are. But like, we're not just how we are. I think that in my teens and through my late 20s, I really took on the message of just like, embrace yourself, just be who you are, this is how you are.
Yeah.
And then I came to feel like, no, it's actually bullshit. This isn't just how I am. I'm this way because I'm actually carrying all sorts of fucked up wounds that I never dealt with and didn't know how to deal with, and that's
right.
Having me be this way. And so as I started to address those wounds, I started being very different.
Yes. So, I mean, what we just brushed up against is getting deep real fast, which is good.
That's how I roll.
There's a fundamental, when I look at spiritual practice, personal development, and so on, I think there's a distinction that is rarely understood, which is there is a difference between what I would call constraint removal and what I would call skill development.
Okay.
Shout out to Adam Soda, my friend, for helping me articulate this really well, because we discussed this at length. But it's removal or dropping or disidentifying with conditioning is one thing, and then learning how to be something is another thing. And it's a very treacherous tightrope, because in no way am I advocating don't bother learning anything. Like I'm doing fucking wilderness survival, I'm doing martial arts, I'm learning dance, I'm doing tantric practices, I'm working on my writing, I'm building businesses, I'm studying entrepreneurial. There's lots of, I love skill acquisition, and it has given me so much when I, probably a similar age, coming out of my teens, being like, I don't know, somewhere in there I was like, I want to get good at this. And I got good at that, and then that gave me some self-esteem, and I had a direction, and then I found something else to get good at, and so on and so on, and my life definitely got richer. So at no point am I suggesting do not. It's so tricky. Let's talk levels. On one level, it is important to aspire and to grow and to attempt to develop yourself and to set destinations and move towards them. And on another deeper level, none of that makes any fucking difference. You're going to die anyway. Yeah.
Fair enough.
And you could be the richest, most chiseled abs, confident public speaker, jiu-jitsu black belt, whatever. And let's say women, I'm not all about just using women as the mirror, but they're a great mirror for men. A certain woman walks in and you just get eviscerated by her, what she is, It doesn't matter that you're a jiu-jitsu black belt, millionaire, whatever guy, like she has something that you can't handle yet.
Oh yeah. First of all, the two don't necessarily have anything to do with one another. I've worked with clients who were, one client, for example, when we met, he was in his 50s. He had just sold a company he had built himself for $100 million US, and walks into a boardroom. He's all fucking powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
A pretty girl walked by, and I would witness this.
Yeah.
Shrinks into a 12-year-old insecure little boy in an instant.
Yeah. And I know guys the other way that are like, good-looking hobos who can walk up to any woman on the street, you know, but it's like, oh, they can't charge money for what they're good at.
I was that man.
Yeah, or
I'm good now.
or they're good with the women and with the money, but then, you know, stand them in a boxing ring or whatever it is, you know. And for myself, one of the ones was figuring out, like, I've got all these skills, I'm so great, I'm this fucking tantric unicorn entrepreneur, whatever I am. It's like, yeah, if I had to live in the forest for like 3 days, I would be screwed, you know. It's just like, oh shit, maybe I should like look at that, you know.
Also, that's one of the. You and I were touching on this again in our pre-interview with some of the things with David Data's work, and just this overall notion as men that we can often get that you are simply just supposed to already have it all figured out and all handled by nature of being a man.
So it's very much in response to that narrative that I'm kind of saying you're already it. You know, if you want to be a millionaire and you currently are broke, you're not already it. You're going to have to invest in some pretty heavy duty skills and take some risks and learn some stuff. And jiu-jitsu, you know, if you're a white belt and you want to be a black belt, you're not already it. There's a few thousand hours between you and where you want to be. But this idea that you're supposed to have it all handled, and if you don't, you're a failure. If you could just let go of that, you could skip a lot of tantra and kickboxing and entrepreneurship and whatever. If the purpose of those things was to make you feel more complete, you could just fucking skip it and go, look, I am who I am. You know, so there's this dichotomy going on. So in the whole integrated man model is about using these archetypes and this system as a mirror to identify where you're strong and where you're weak and where would you like to develop. On the one hand, on the doing side of the equation, and on the being side of the equation, especially what I've seen in men's circle after men's circle, it's like in the revealing of self, in the vulnerability, we become powerful. And there's no new skill got learned. There's no new, like, I didn't just go up to level 10. It's like in the moment that I was honest, I was that guy no one really listened to and was a bit awkward and whatever. The moment that I got honest, everyone's like, boom, I could feel you. I could see you. I could, you know, it's like we are magnificent underneath all of it. So particularly in response to this idea that seems to be pushed, and this is, like, I love David Data's work. I got so much out of it, and I got to a point where there was a law of diminishing returns in trying to fuck my woman open to God to solve every problem. You know, it's like it doesn't solve many problems. Like, it solves some problems, very specific problems, but it isn't the answer to everything, in my humble opinion. And also, it's still building a sort of subtle spiritual ego of, like, if you can't fuck her open to God, you're a fucking inferior man. You're a fucking loser. You know, like, you're doing it wrong. You need to go to the next course or read the book again or meditate harder or something. And really
meditate harder,
meditate with more intense, screw your face up, you know, like contract your butthole while you do your anapana practice or whatever, you know. And the irony of, like, for me, in some of the moments of despair of going, you know what, all this shit is fucking just bullshit, and it all kind of breaks open, and I just go like, that feels really good. And someone comes along and goes, hey, you really feel really mature and powerful and like you've grown in yourself. And it's like, I kind of just decided to surrender to the fates yesterday. Like, you know, like, and not necessarily like sleeping in the gutter or whatever, but just dropping this. Men have ingrained into them this desperate desire to be better than they already are, which is a metaphysical impossibility. You can't be better than you already are. You are, or you're not. And the skills and that stuff is beautiful, and it's on the surface, and it will take your life places. But you know, if you hold a baby on the first day of birth, and you could then fast forward to that same person in their deathbed at 98 years old, it's not like, you know, he was an amazing kickboxer, or like, you know, his meditation was so good, or he could fuck a woman open into light. You know, it's the same feeble, vulnerable creature that came in is going out, and if you look in their eyes, you're going to see the same thing, like the same magic or power or divinity or whatever. That hasn't been. You don't get to polish that up and make it better. You know, it just is what it is. So, you think you can be more God than you already were when you came in? You should see his face right now.
Okay, I gotta explore this with you a little bit because I want to challenge you on it or find out where we are aligned or not aligned.
Sure,
here.
and I don't even agree with myself all the time. So I could jump
with you
sides
there.
and join you, and we'll gang up on me in a minute. Like what is he talking about?
So I get you on one level there, especially when you look at our being, our souls, our spirits, our core essences as infinite. What is even this fucking life? 100 years max of growth. What do you fucking do in infinity? What's that? But and at the same time, I mean, it appears anyway on this plane. I don't know what plane, but that you can live your life in such a way that you numb yourself, even deaden your insides as the years go on, or you live your life in such a way that something seems to further open, further evolve, further awaken. More radiance seems to shine from your eyes as you get older rather than less.
Yes. So, what's my hypothesis?
Okay.
let's get it. Let's pretend like this is science. My hypothesis is that if that's the agenda, is to liberate more of that magnificence, that it's as much about. Okay, I mentioned to you, Michaela Boehm, Steve James, those guys have been a recent influence on me. Let's say the last year and a half, yeah?
If you haven't already, listen to my episode with Michaela Boehm. Check it out in iTunes, Stitcher.
Yeah.
Go on.
Love these guys. And, I've been mucking around with personal development, spiritual practice, something, since about 14 or 15. I'm now 38, so it's a little while,
A little while, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not, I don't feel like some kind of master, but I feel like I've journeyed a bunch,
Mm-hmm.
When I'm 80, I'll be like, I'm some kind of master, I'll just say it, but I'm not that. But what's happened to me over the last couple of years was this sort of sense of a lot of these paths give a little something, but they don't ultimately deliver. They don't, and I started like having this sense of like I'm still doing practices, I'm still growing, but I'm less trying to get somewhere. And from an outside point of view, a lot of my peers will be like, you've gotten more productive. And it's like, well, yeah, I write more, I do this more, I do that more, but I'm less about the outcome and more about the doing of the do, just to watch myself doing it. And a real nice reframe from Steve James particularly is moving from this idea of self-improvement or self-development to the idea of self-inquiry. And it just, it's a tiny little thing in a way, but it just gave me this little reframe of like, oh, so I still can do stuff. I mean, I'm going to be around till I die, and I want to grow and learn and experience and deepen. That's what I'm here for, as far as I can tell. But something was becoming disenfranchised with the, as a personal development, like, I would just do the stuff to the letter, I would just inhale it and do it and execute it, and I get some certain results, but there's still just like, yeah, but, there's still something fundamentally, life is fundamentally unsatisfactory at its deepest fucking roots, right? Like Buddhism nailed a few pieces that Tony Robbins cannot fix for you, even if you're really good at executing his stuff and you get in state and you manage your state and your fucking mindset is spot on and blah, 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 blah. If you're observant, you'll notice that you're completely out of your fucking mind and you're insane.
Okay, let's just tease that out a little bit more. Sure. What are these things that Buddhism has laid out that even Tony Robbins can fix, quote unquote?
Well, okay, big. I put myself in these positions and I have to explain. But like,
more to come.
You want things, you get the things. Nothing fundamentally changes, so you think up some new things to want, and you either go get those things or you don't get those things. If you're not noticed, this is a little bit repetitive, and it hasn't really fucking changed anything since day one. Like that's the mind habit, If you sit in enough meditation, and again, I've probably been doing Vipassana for about 8 or 9 years, and then started bringing some newer practices in the last couple, and so I haven't got to like 20,000 hours of Ken Wilber neurology where I can stop the fucking brain on the chart or whatever. But I've been doing a bit of meditation for a while, and it's like, whoa! When I get in here, this mechanism is just so obsessed with like thinking up a problem and then trying to fix that problem, and then we get to the end of that problem and it wasn't really that big of a problem anyway, but don't worry because now there's a new problem or new desire, you know? Well, yeah, but if I'm with this woman, it'll be different, you know? She's going to fix all the things because she's got dark hair and, you know, it's like, that'll be this. And then you get there and it's like, it seems like there's a perfect balance of challenge and support in every situation. So why am I dreaming up future stuff to try to get to it as if it's going to solve what I'm missing when that has not once happened, if I'm honest. And I've yet to meet a person who can demonstrate to me that that's it. I wanted the thing, I got the thing, now I'm good, like permanently.
So, with a little bit of humor, tongue-in-cheek, so what's the solution?
Fucking let go a bit, you know? That's what I've come to, is surrendering to, do my best Eckhart Tolle impersonation, you know? Coming into the now. Like, if we can't do that, we're completely fucked anyway. You know, you'll get to the end, you'll be dying, and you realize, fuck, I've been imagining this whole thing, and I forgot to actually notice what was really going on. That was a waste. And if the full-on Buddhist is right, you have to come back and do it again, like bad homework, you know? It's like, come back and do that again, and pay attention this time. It's at least, you know, on a layman's normal person living your life thing, it's at least having some moments of presence and consciousness in the day. Even if you are frenetically trying to build a startup or sleep with all the women or be the best bow shooting guy or, you know, whatever the hell your thing is, do it and pause in the middle and notice that it's fundamentally not that important. Have you heard of Richard Rohr? You know him?
No.
He's a, hope I get this right. He's a modern day, I think, Franciscan monk, you know, one of those kind of European brown, yeah. But has actually some very progressive and intelligent ideas about masculinity, and he's a lot about initiation. He has these 4 rules. There's no way I'm going to be able to remember them all perfectly, but they're basically the rules of mature masculinity that you need to get your head around if you're ever going to be a man in his particular initiation journey. And one of them, the only one I can remember right now, is it's not about you. I remember reading it and I was in the full-blown death throes of my personal development, but I'm just building this thing and I'm so amazing and I say my affirmations and I'm so great, and it's like, it's not about you. I'm like, what? who am I doing this for?
And I'm sure he was writing that book for everybody else.
Yeah, it's Dane. It is about you, but for the rest of us, forget it, you know? And I think one of the other ones is life is hard. You know, and I've been training, pounding my neurology with like personal development dogmas of like, you know, you believe it and you see it and blah, 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 you know. And this guy's like, life is hard. That's a fact. I'm like, I don't like this philosophy, you know. I'm putting this book down, but it would just haunt me and I'd be like, and because, you know, if we're going to claim to even try to be intelligent, then we should be able to hold contradictory truths at different levels, right?
Yep.
Which is the problem with me saying this stuff is like, well, if you ask me in a different way,
I'll get a different answer.
yeah, and we could agree to all the opposite stuff, you know? But this kind of, and I see it with, what's that guy? You know, The Obstacle is the Way, that dude. You know, this book, The Obstacle is the Way, he goes, Ryan Holiday. You know, this kind of new stoicism thing coming out as well. Like,
I don't get it.
It's good, you know? It's the perfect medicine for the personal development ego delusion. I think we need them both, you know? I think we need to believe that, yes, we can be, do, and have everything we ever want, and simultaneously hold that we're not important, we're going to fucking die, and life is a bit of a bitch sometimes. And if you can hold those two together, you have at least a chance of being balanced, you know? And it's like, I had this... I don't know if I should bring this up, but I think I'm gonna. So,
I'm thinking the same thing. Don't worry, it's coming.
Yeah. I had this guy... there's a lot of interesting people, and I'm watching Australia. I'm watching a little bit the States and Europe as well, but I have a better view of Australia because obviously I'm here and I'm quite well networked here, and I have only peripheral networks outside of here. But the man industry is coming. You know, I feel like what that Game of Thrones meme with the, you know, brace yourself, winter is coming kind of thing. Okay. It's like brace yourself. You know, the shitty man coach businesses, they're all coming. You know. There's going to be like 5,000 man coaches in your area in 2 years, you know? And there's a lot coming out of the personal development achievement space. And this one guy, I'm not going to name his name, but wanted to interview me for some of his stuff, and then we got talking, and he got some of my philosophies, and he just changed his mind. He's like, I don't want you in my program. I don't want you.
Whoa! What did you say?
I basically said that, like, you know, his whole model was that, like, if we master our thoughts, we master our destiny, and I'm like, yeah, you know, like, since I was fucking 15, I've been playing with that or whatever. But and yes, on a level, mental level, truth, useful, and that. He'd been around the men's circle thing, was like, I don't know about the value of this whole, like, men just being in their feelings, and we're feeling this and we're feeling that, you know, like, you're not going to be that wealthy and successful if you're just all in your feelings. And I was kind of like, well, look, if you're just in your head, you're never going to live a real life. Like, you're just going to live a mental dialogue life that is kind of a band-aid over all your fucked up, suppressed feelings that you're so scared to feel. And again, the balance would be mastery of your inner dialogue and kind of thinking positive thoughts. Sorry, I do an American accent for that, but you know, it's where you know it's where it's come from, and being embodied and feeling and fucking cry if you're sad and fucking shout if you're angry, and, like, you know, not having to create this kind of, like, you know, like the NLP phony, you know, it's like, I'm in state, I'm positive, I'm focused on my outcome. It's like, your wife left you and you're fucking sad and you should just cry a little bit. And then we can get back to being in state and you can make $1 million and that's great. But I can see that in your body there is stored grief right now.
Absolutely.
And all the fucking reframes in the world will not change that, you know?
Yeah.
And we kind of had this kind of conversation. He was like, I don't want you to be associated with my work, you know? I was just like, oh, because I still want to be liked.
I've never had that. I've never had that thought or feeling. You know, if I have, I have a really strong desire actually to bring more people onto my show who I strongly disagree with.
Yeah.
So far I failed because there's just so many people who I carry enough overlap with who I still want to have on my show.
So you find a middle ground and you can, yeah. And I mean,
it's just, I mean, you're very fun for me to have these conversations with because we do share a massive overlap, and can go into really deep areas very easily, and can explore these areas in a way that is just interesting for other men who are interested in this type of thing.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter about right. Yeah, it's like, and so this is the other part of the integrated man is being quite influenced by some of Ken Wilber's ideas and the whole integral thing, and at least the attempt, you know, his crazy noble attempt to form an integral map of, like, all the things, which I don't know if it perfectly worked, but he's done it, you know?
Far more than I have.
Far more than anyone else ever, you know? Like, it's like, but it's a framework that allows you to integrate and hold many sciences and perspectives and whatever, and particularly of all the models that he draws off, spiral dynamics is my favorite, hence the naming of my own sort of processes. And this idea in spiral dynamics, we move through these different consciousness stages, and the seventh one, the integral, I'm doing the rabbit ear quote fingers, which you can't see because it's a podcast, I just keep doing them. This integral level is the level at which we can hold contradictory perspectives. So every other level, they're just trying to kill each other if they disagree. You know, if you're, like, left and you're right, it's like, well, now we just have to hate each other. But anyone who's integral is going to be capable of a little bit of left and a little bit of right, and not fully agree with all the left, and not fully, because it's not that simple, right? And I think the beauty of, and why these kind of dialogue-based things have become so popular in the last few years is, like, you know, like, I listen to Joe Rogan, like, every other day, you know? And someone will be like, I don't even like this dude he's going to have on. I'm like, so this will be good, you know? I know this guy's a dick. And then I'm like, actually, he's pretty cool, you know? And he might, what he thinks about, I don't know, gun control or women or whatever, I might be like, that doesn't sit well with me. But as an overview of, like, being a human in the world, man, that guy was pretty cool. Like, so we could either hate each other over one issue, or it could be like, that's another human doing their thing, and
we need a lot more of that perspective, especially in the U.S. You know, where we're so hyper partisan. It's so you know, you're conservative or you're progressive, and if you're conservative, you believe this sorts of things, and you hate these other sorts of things, exactly. Oh, it drives me crazy.
We have it here, and I feel like the voltage is just turned down to maybe like 60% of you guys, and it's still, you know, like if I hang out with gender studies kind of post-grad uni environmentalist kind of kids, I'm going to be right wing, you know? I'm going to seem like, I'm going to say some shit that's like, well, even like masculine and feminine. It's like, how can you think that? I'm like, I mean, they're just models. It's like, it's disgusting. You know, I was like, okay, you guys are fire. But then if I hang out with like, let's say older guys that I've met through men's circles and stuff, like 60-year-old guys, and they're just like, they just think feminism is like the worst thing that ever happened. And I'm just like, look, man, you're not going to look at the whole picture. And so then now I'm like those kids, I'm like explaining to them like, you know, haven't you thought about some of the issues that transgender, and they're like, I have, what? I'm like, okay, well, in the world right now on the global stage, these sort of things, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like the left green equality advocate here, and then I might as well be like the gun-toting misogynist over here, and it's like, fuck, am I the same? Or am I, you know, it's just perspectives, right? And I'm learning from, and I'll often disagree, but then when I leave, some of what they said, I'm like, I've got to read about that.
I really appreciate this because, you know, I'm much the same way, and I often feel very alone in that regards. Particularly because I spent most of my life very identified with the left of the left,
right?
You know,
right?
And that's not really. If I'm to take a label, I can't take that type of label anymore. First of all, I have a hard time taking any political label at all anymore. Like my perspectives are rooted in spirit. Yes, my perspectives are rooted in spiritual perspectives, not political perspectives.
Yeah.
And are there overlaps? Yeah, and they're not. They're not complex. The same.
You know, I've often thought like voting should just come up on your Facebook each day. You know, in this weird creepy world where everyone now has a mandatory Facebook. I just like to create that. But you know, it just comes up on your social media profile, and you will just tick the specific issues that you support. It's just like one big Facebook poll. That's how we fix it. You know?
It may be coming. Well, some version of it. Anyway.
I mean, let's not do the Donald Trump thing. Like that's just would be silly.
You know, it's the inauguration is this week. This week, Donald Trump is not the president-elect. He is the president of the United States.
Fuck, it's funny.
Yeah, that's one way of. That's one way of looking at it.
All the way on the other side of the world, and I mean, I know people who are like expat British people who live in Thailand who are weeping and saying the world is fucked. And I'm like, dude, you're like a 65-year-old British guy with a Thai wife living in some village. The fuck is it? Like, really? How's that? Honestly, you know, like, the internet speed and the price of pineapples is not going to change. You know, like, just chill the fuck out, you know? And we touched on, when we were talking about some taboo stuff at dinner, you know, some...
how much time we got?
Wes could segue us in there, you know, like, we talked about the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
And, you know, in the more politically minded and individually minded and social justice kind of mind of reality, there's a lot of blaming individuals for stuff, ironically. You know, these kind of people do this kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And when you zoom out and get to this more global view, it's like, it appears, as far as like, you know, I'm not saying I perfectly hold that view, but it appears from someone who tries to take that view that these forces are oftentimes the expression of not oftentimes, are constantly the expression of unexpressed things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a British political commentator called Christopher Pye. He's quite amazing. He has it's got like millions of views. He's like, you want to know who's to blame for Trump? And he basically says liberals. And his piece on it is amazing. And he's like, people like me. And he's like, I'm this, we're about that. And you've got this kind of pendulum swinging of unexpressed this and overexpressed that, and it's going to emerge. The more unconscious it is, the more dramatically and disturbingly it's going to emerge, you know? So it's like, why?
So here we are.
Here we are, you know? This is the same underlying principle as why do Catholic priests fuck children? It's like, well, there is a man who has been for 20 years trying to master his sexual drives purely using suppression and guilt. Difficult challenge, my friend, you know? Like, very, you know, as someone who's done, like, celibacy challenges for a few months, and you know, not an
I lasted 6 weeks once. That's about
you know? I've done ejaculation control practice and stuff, but this was like, okay, I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to not engage with that. Mm-hmm. And I got to like day 40 and it was like pretty good. And then I was on the edge of like, I think I'm going to go insane. Mm-hmm. I want to go punch someone I don't know in the face or like just go jerk off on the side of the road. And I was like, ooh, these are quite extreme behaviors, Dane. Like this is, and this wasn't, I think I might. This is like, I'm pretty much considering it right now that I should just go and like, you know, just do something strong to get this energy out. And I was like, so how would it be to not have any of these spiritual or energetic or qigong or any of this stuff and have signed up for some religion and just be trying to do this for like 20 years? It's like, I would have done a lot of fucking very bad shit long before I got to year 20, you know? So the question isn't why are they doing it, the question is why is this tradition holding a system that is basically a pedophile production machine, you know? It's the dogma that's doing it, not that those individuals are bad. Mm-hmm. And I think when you have something bizarre like something like Trump coming to power, it's like, well, something's been unaddressed for a while now, you know? Yeah. Something's just come out and it's like, you know, like, you know, your Uncle Joe who was really nice for 20 years, who's now got stomach cancer, that's all the mean shit he wanted to say, but he never said, you know? And boom, it's like, I don't know. So there's this not looking, okay, here's the bit that I didn't get was like, from a distance and not being even that politically savvy, I was like, of course he's going to win. Of course. It's so obvious. And people that are my friends that are more political are like, you're off your head. Like, that's not going to happen. I'm like, I'm telling you, this person who is not playing by the rules, who is a far superior marketer than these other people, is going to win because it's just so provocative and unlikely that it kind of almost has to happen, you know? Anyway, I've hijacked into a subject that I didn't care about.
What if this was the new normal in your sex life? Hi, I'm Dustin Garrick, masculine empowerment coach and creator of EnticingDesire.com. And I'm here to tell you that yes, all of this is possible and more. Learn to become the lover that women remember, the one that she brags about to her friends. Head on over to EnticingDesire.com to claim your free 24-minute introductory training to becoming the best lover she's ever had. I have 19 years of education, training, and experience in the field of sexuality, and I can tell you that I have seen complete transformations in men from the application of the simple principles presented in this video. Increases in confidence, performance, and satisfaction. With no pills required, no tricks, no gimmicks. This is an introduction to an entirely new way of being that will spark her authentic craving for you and your body. Head on over to EnticingDesire.com now and evolve your sexual consciousness. I care about it a lot, but honestly, I've been spending like many people, I'm inwardly tormented around the whole situation, in large part because I don't like to claim that I have the answers to things that I don't know. And there's a lot that I don't know here. And at the same time, one of the things that I stand for as somebody who is growing towards the evolved masculine is to be a stand. To be a stand for what I believe in. Yeah. And to date, I don't really feel like I have yet really put my stake in the ground around what's going on in the world politically.
Well, do you believe in politics at all?
It's very clear that the country that I live in is in the midst of a radical, rapid change. And I do have some very strong feelings about it. And I do have the sense that there's something I'm going to have to do in some form, in some way, at some point, and I don't know what it is
I'm
yet.
just having this vision of you like assembling like a sniper rifle quietly and calmly.
Take his vision. I did not say that. You do understand, like, everything is being recorded and taken at this point, and we're actively recording it.
Like, it's some crazy Australian. It's like, what the hell, you know?
But
I'm just messing.
That well, first of all, that doesn't tend to be my way, but like, as I was saying, I do feel that something is going to be called of me, and I don't know what it is yet.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's unnerving. I like that exciting is the first thing that came up for you.
It's like something's gonna happen.
Yeah, it feels that way. I mean, even voicing it right now is a big deal for me. I've spoken to Ellie about it, but that's about it. And big part is because it's unknown. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm also very aware that while the vast majority of my audience is what we'll call the left side of the spectrum.
Sure.
It's not absolute by any means.
Yeah.
Maybe 80-20.
Yeah.
Maybe even 90-10. But still, there's still a good 10 to 20% who aren't. And for you who's listening, I value you. I want to continue to be a positive force in your life however I can be, as long as you allow me to be so. And that does affect me as well, that desire to not alienate. And at the same time, I'm like, that's bullshit. I mean, I just posted something on my Facebook, and Martin Luther King quote, since it was Martin Luther King Jr. Day this week, which I'm not even going to try to mangle the quote, but along the lines of, if you feel that call to stand for something and you don't because you're fucking afraid, afraid of not being liked, afraid of losing your job, afraid of even being fucking killed for it, you're dead right then anyway. You know, you can live to be 85, doesn't matter, you died that day. And like, especially because he named the age at 38, which you and I are both 38, and I'm like, oh fuck, and I'm like that, you know, like, so I know I cannot allow those things to stop me, but I'm also aware of the ways in which all that is moving inside of me right now. But I think that this conversation right now really helped me get clear on what it is. I'm not fully speaking it out yet as well, because I don't know yet what it is, but I feel it coming. I feel something stirring inside of me, something emerging, something maybe that I'm preparing myself for on an internal level. I have no idea what it will look like. And watch, now nothing happens and this is all bullshit. But it doesn't feel that way. And in my life, I tend to be, my intuition is pretty strong these days. You know, and so I do believe that I don't know what it means, but I do feel it means something.
Watch this space, folks.
Right. Watch the space. So, and hey, if you're end up being drawn to wherever the hell it goes, join me. And if you hate where it goes, send me hate mail. It's cool. I've got a folder in my Gmail for my hate mail. Yeah.
I don't have as much these days.
Me neither. I kind of miss it. You know?
Not as provocative or not as just rude.
I got more hate mail during my erotic rockstar years.
Yeah, that's.
So, I know we're covering a lot of different areas. Honestly, like, I really dig you. I feel a certain kinship with you that even amongst the people who I bring on my show, which I friggin' love the people I bring on my show. So far, I really look forward to bring somebody on who I really don't love. But if you're out there and you're listening, you know it's you. Reach out to me. Like, it might be. In 5 minutes,
you're not going to like me at all.
Yeah, great. I've come to recognize these people who I meet every now and then around the world where I'm like, you know, there's 7 billion people on the planet, roughly 3.5 billion men. Of the people on the planet, you and I have more in common than 99.9999% of them. So, gotta really recognize that.
It's pretty cool and unusual.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like, the calling to have poked around certain areas and then certain other areas, and then, you know, because you can meet other people who have different overlap as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of you know, we were talking about what are my offerings and all that sort of stuff, and one of this kind of the niche definer that I have of not just kind of marketing niche, but also like who I'm trying to like to have in my space and stuff, and what I'm sort of trying to build here in Byron and across Australia and wherever. It's like there's this beautiful qualifier of people who have the kind of conscious sexuality on the one hand, and then there's a sort of conscious business on the other hand. And anyone who's able to play in both of those, I'm automatically like, oh, we've now got a bunch. We can now go from like chakras to marketing strategies in 2 paragraphs, and no one's going to get confused. It's like that's good, you know. And not just because those subjects are important or interesting, but that then implies a whole bunch.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, it implies that you aren't just on some kind of new age trip, which then rules out like capitalism or economics or you know, like there's it's the thing we were talking about before, and this kind of theme coming up of integration and integral, which is like, oh, you can hold. You know, you can play Shakti Shiva, but you're still also trying to nail down your your marketing or your funnels or all that kind of stuff. And it's, for me, it's really enjoyable. Whereas when you have to sit just in one lane, you know, I've got, various programs and hang out with people, they're just business people. And as soon as I would mention a chakra or like, even like cock or pussy, it'd be like, whoa, hey, whoa. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, we're okay to like declare our like multi-million-dollar goals that would freak out other people, but as soon as someone names like a body part, everyone's looking a bit weird, you know. And then you go and hang out with these amazing tantric beings who can shine light out of every body part, and it's so amazing, but they're all poor. And it's like, come on, you could face your shadow in like, you could face your sexual shame and transcend that, but you couldn't face your like financial worth shame, like. And I'm not writing either group off. I spend a lot of time trying to like invite them to the same party so they can like, you know, get opened or whatever. But the people who are already playing in the
both those worlds,
it's I find that very exciting and cool stuff that can happen from there.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with consciousness is that it's bringing awareness and to all areas of one's life. If there's any area that you feel like you can't go into, or is not okay, or is taboo, or what have you, that's the area to go into.
Good place to look at, you know. And that's, you know, once for me that was sex, and now it's really not. And once it was finance and money, and it's really not. And now, then for a little while, it was like physical body and strength training and movement, which is becoming from an absolute weakness to now like a functional. It's not yet a strength, but it's gone from like a 2 out of 10 to like probably like 5 or 6 out of 10. That's pretty cool, you know. And then the stuff we're talking about, like you know, bush survival, which is like I'm a 0 at that, you know. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna start doing that stuff next.
That's cool.
Because it's sort of the men that I'm intimidated by, they're good at that, you know. They can build cabins and hunt animals and filter water. I'm like, you know. My woman would leave me for you in the right situation, you know? It's like, he's so conscious, he's amazing, he can do this. Yeah, but we're going to starve with him. Let's go over here, you know? This guy's making arrows out of, like, sticks. Like, he's a real man.
So, I mean, that's the trap, though, for, again, we got to the beginning. This is the trap that many men end up feeling, no matter what you do, no matter how far you go with it, you know you're not really enough of a man.
Right. So I think it brings us to what I think is the fundamental issue is it's fear of feeling. Like, people kill themselves on a daily basis because there's a feeling somewhere in their body they're not willing to feel today. You know, or at least not feel all the way down to the bottom. And men will, you know, not sign up for a course or not do some action or not, you know, go learn to dance salsa or whatever because they would feel like they're going to be ashamed or they're going to be awkward or they're going to be whatever, or, you know, they don't know how to touch a woman. So it's not like there isn't a million places you could go and learn that, but because of primarily, I think, shame and because of this conditioning, which, you know, in this country is particularly thorough, which is like, men don't have feelings. And if they do, they should fucking shut up about them, you know? It's like... So I think most of the genuine solutions are really along the path of sensitization, embodiment. You know, if a man knows that he can handle any emotion that he could feel, well, then what activities would he not be able to do? And if he can do any activity, then what area of perceived deficit would he not be able to at least grow? Like, it's very unlikely that I'm going to become some kind of master hunter, but I've done enough sort of time outside my comfort zone and feeling like, I'm going to feel a bit silly for a few days. But if I do this a few times, I'm going to gradually feel less silly. And you know what? I'll probably get at least competent. And that's the sort of difference between the 38-year-old me versus the teenager who's like, I'm not going to go there because I'll be bad at it and I don't want to ever be bad at it. I'm just going to stick to stuff that I'm good at. Therefore, my life is very narrow. And therefore, I became a not integrated man because I was probably excellent at 2 or 3 things. And everything else, we just don't talk about it.
Learning to enjoy what you suck at.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. It's so good. You know? And I think it comes back again to like ego attachment, humility, this kind of stoic philosophy of like, if you've been spoon-fed that you're supposed to feel good all the time and you're going to be good at everything, then it's going to be a bitch whenever you try to step outside of your lane and get some new skill under your belt. But if you've been taught, you know what, every path there is fraught with challenge and support, easy bits and hard bits, ups and downs, then you can go do anything. And I think just some of these frameworks, you know, it's like this book, The Integrated Man, it's not going to be a big book. It's going to be a very practical, a bunch of frameworks, questions, challenges, that sort of stuff. And really, in order to help men reframe what success is, you know, because I think that there's a lot of this frame of like, you're supposed to be successful and no questioning of what are the value sets that have been embedded in you from childhood. So it's like, I'm going to be successful, which means this kind of job, this kind of partner, this kind of house in this kind of suburb. And it's like, but you didn't choose any of that. How could it possibly be successful? That's someone else's definition, and you're sucking at it, you know. Versus if you can actually scrutinize, what do I actually want and what actually matters, then it tends to bring up a lot more courage of like, you know, I'm okay to go through pain for things that really matter to me, and I'm sure you are, and every other guy that I know that's doing something cool, they'll go and do something that they suck at or that is going to have some gnarly bits because they're interested in growth or fulfillment rather than success or being good all the time.
Man, I've really been listening. I really encourage you to just rewind this about 2 minutes and listen to that again. That's a really big deal. How much do you check in around like, what am I going after? What is this life that I'm creating? Where is this what I want? Where did that want come from?
Yeah.
Even a noticeable chunk, anyway, of the men who come to me, like when we start to explore, like, okay, who is your evolved masculine archetype? What is it that, if you could create whatever life you want to create in the world, what would that life be? What would that, who would you become? And I would listen to the responses that we would draw out and be like, now, how much of that's actually really you versus ideas or desires that have been implanted by our constant programming from this world?
And I think that's the, the kind of dichotomy we were playing with at the beginning, like your beingness essence versus but we still want to grow and develop, and me kind of playing no, you just are already, which you are on a level. I think the marriage of the two, for me, has very much happened around understanding values really well. Particularly John DeMartini's work on values above any NLP or Robbins or the Value Center or anyone. Like, I feel like DeMartini nails the understanding of values better than any other person I've ever come across.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, he's onto it. He's the Values Factor. That's his book on that thing, and that's his major piece, you know.
Okay. And
what I've seen from that is some of these ideas that show up in kind of David Data and men's work and whatever of, all these, the authentic man and such, we're all naming our things what we feel like our best labeling of it is, and we're kind of finding our little...
And what URL is available.
Totally. Yeah. What some guy didn't already buy. And one of the pieces that seems to be consistent, though, is this idea of a guy who knows himself, right?
Yeah.
it's that piece seems to turn up in all the different versions, like, and you know, you see it in characters that you would enjoy in like fiction or whatever. It's like, oh, that guy is in him, so he just knows who he is and what he wants, and you know, when he says no to the woman, she loves it because it's like his genuine alignment of like, I can't, baby, I've got to go do that. And that's a lot of what the data stuff is pointing at with the way he talks about purpose. And I found that more so than purpose as this external, well, I know that I'm here on planet Earth to do X, Y, Z, which is can be nebulous and changing, is when you have your deep values nutted out that are there in your life as reflected by all the stuff you're doing constantly. It's very easy to be more honest because it's like, actually, I'm here, you know, I'm here to unfold consciousness, share my ideas, build design businesses, enjoy sexual connection, and have physical embodiment. They're the things that if you watch me for a year with a spy camera and added up all, it's like, spends a lot of time doing those things. And you try and introduce some other thing, it's like, he's not so good at sticking with that, you know? He managed 3 hours of that, but like 700 hours of this. And it appears like this person's so disciplined at this one thing. It's like, that's what you're about. And I think particularly in a lot of the increasing complexity of the relationship between men and women is, I was going to say a species, not really the right, a generation of women that probably more than ever before know what they want, and a generation of men that probably worse or less than ever before know what they want. So now we have this situation of men going, I don't know, I just, whatever you want to do, you know?
Like your voice cracked as you said that.
Yeah. I'm not that I'm reinforcing any form of gender stereotypes at all. But this sort of sense of like, he doesn't know. And it's these coaching clients that I've had, you know, the biggest problem is like, so what do you want? And they're like, I mean, I've been married for 25 years. I have 3 kids, been working this one job. I haven't thought about what I want for quite a while. I'm like, okay, so if we're going to get anywhere, can we just start there? Because you're not going to be able to do anything authentically unless you know, like, you're 50 years old, dude. You got 30, 40 years left. What do you want to do with it? And it's like, fuck. I love riding my motorbike. It's like, cool, how much do you do that? Not much. It's like, okay, maybe we can increase that a bit, you know? And then from there it becomes this new self-esteem, and then it's like boundaries with the wife, and then all of a sudden the sex gets better because he's saying, yes, but I need this much time per week. And it's like, if a person just knew themselves the whole time, none of this would get compromised in the first place, because it'd be like, you know, I'm hitting a place where I know I need certain practices, certain activities, certain amounts of alone time to be happy and functional, and there's no benefit of me compromising that for another person. They wouldn't get a better version of me, they get a worse version of me, so it's better that I attend to that first, and then I can have whatever dynamics I'm going to have with a lover, family member, friend, whatever, and that seems to solve a lot of this stuff. Like, that's 80% of it fixed. I'm doing what I want to do. So therefore, if I spend time with you, I must want to be here, which is beautiful. Versus the resentee, I'm here because I have to be. Oh my God.
Okay, so these can be some of my other fun places. That's why, I let you go on for lengthy periods of times because I find you fascinating, your perspectives, and also just to most of it, I am just in full-on agreement with. And then you say some things I'm like, I don't know. Let me ask you about this. So this time, this is part of my own journey, sometimes struggle. Maybe I've learned some things. Maybe I'm just in this place of not knowing, or of individuation and partnership.
Yeah.
You know, there's codependence, there's independence, there's interdependence. Yeah. I've experienced all of the above. Yeah. And exploring that line between, okay, this is who I am, this is what I want, and where two individuals come together and form partnership. Sometimes, often in the world, as you look around, from that partnership, creating family.
Yes.
And now within those things, you
yes, you have an individual, two individuals, and you also have a third entity.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the big struggles of men, and one that I'm still definitely in, though I think I'm doing pretty good this time. Where is that line? Where is that place of, okay, this is what I want, so this is what I'm going to do, while also, this is what I want, this is the impact I know that it's going to have, and how do I consider that in making the choices of what I want and what I don't want. And like, I find it to be one of those razor edges.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And I think the distinction I want to make is between fulfilling your values versus doing certain things.
Okay.
So, I mean, let's say a silly example is like, well, I just have to fuck a lot of women, and I want to have this relationship with you, but it's just one of the things that I have to do.
I've been that man.
Yeah. So you have to then negotiate either certain types of certain relationships are not going to be available to you, certain relationships will break, whatever, right? But a deeper understanding of a value, which might be significance or attention or connection or whatever it is, you are going to have to meet that value, otherwise your relationship will suffer one way or another. Now, the meeting it by fucking lots of other women is only one possible alternative of meeting that value. And let's say you get deep enough to realize, you know what, the reason I've been banging women since I was 13 by the dozens is that I actually really like attention. And it's like, you know what, I might have to take up stand-up comedy because I can do that and it's not going to ruin, you know what I mean? Like, it's a silly example, but this level of clarity of there is some parts of me that they must be fulfilled. So if we're going to regard this relationship as a third entity made up of the first two entities, if two unfulfilled entities make a third entity, it's going to be an unfulfilled third entity, right? Sure. So it's not like we have a choice of fulfilling our values or not. If we don't fulfill them, relationships will be more difficult because an undernourished being turns up to the relationship and is going to have to feed off the partner to get that stuff if they're not fulfilling it themselves. So I'm not proposing that there are fixed actions and behaviors that must happen and must be enforced on another person. More that if you know the values and needs within yourself that need to be met for you to be healthy and happy, then interdependence is actually an option. Whereas if it's like you have no self-knowledge and you haven't really even ever done any investigation of what do I want out of this life, like no matter how amazing this woman is, you came in by yourself and you're going to die most likely by yourself, unless you do a suicide pact or whatever. It's you, and then at the next second it's her, and the family unit is the next third. However, to not fulfill the individual is to sabotage the others anyway. And I think there's subtlety to this, so it's not that I'm playing and you just take what you want and you just do whatever you just leave those kids. It's like, that's not what I'm saying, but it's like knowing that there are certain parts of you that must be fulfilled and must be, like, I talked to a man, it's like, okay, we're going to do this retreat for 3 days. It's like, oh, I couldn't take 3 days away from the family. I'm like, well, I mean, how often? Well, like, ever. I'm like, you can't ever take 3 days away from your family? And they're like, oh, no, I don't see how that would happen. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, this guy is like, he's gone.
Yeah.
Like, how good could it really be if he can't ever even have 3 days to himself at any point? And and of course the financial rationale or emotional support or whatever will be the kind of reasoning, but that's dysfunction. That's completely dysfunctional. So if we can't fill ourselves up as individuals, and this is not, you must be a completely self-actualized individual before you even like go on a date. That's silly. but at least to some degree, if I'm relatively fulfilled, I do a lot of the things I want to do. My life is going in a direction that I want. If that's there, then there can be a real genuine compassion and love and giving to the other. And if that isn't there, it's like, yeah, I'm doing this because she's great, but I'm fucking doing a lot of things I don't want to do, and I'm just hanging in here and doing this, then there's going to be a cost at some point.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm kind of trying to say.
Yeah, I think that my own life journey backs up a lot of that, and including the many and varied relationships that I've had. That, I mean, well, first of all, the reason why this one works as well as it does is because we are both the most, well, let me start here. I am the most whole and complete going into that relationship than I'd ever been before. Yeah. And so I brought, I attracted the most whole and complete woman to my life that I'd ever had before.
Sounds like a fair deal, right?
Versus, just seeking to fill a hole, both hers and the one inside of me. And all the different ways in which I was trying to, needed her to fulfill these set of unconscious expectations that I had in order for me to feel okay, now I'm okay.
Yeah. And how full on is that one? How many people are not doing that?
I'm no wonder why we're so dysfunctional.
Yeah.
But that was that was every other relationship that I've been in, minus this one. And not to say that there aren't any elements of that exist in this one. I'm sure they could be found.
We have zero projection of any kind going on in our relationship. I mean, we're just these two individuals. It's great.
Thankfully, now that we're both fully enlightened beings,
it's much more simple.
So it's but the progress, I don't know, it shows. I mean, that's the thing about this. Committing yourself to, I don't know, I normally speak of it as a path of evolution, of personal and spiritual development, or you can call it a path of self-inquiry. If you can committing yourself to this path and the years pass, the truth is, things get better. Yeah. They do. So it's worth it. Yeah. It's not always easy, but it's very worth it. And it pays dividends. It seems like a good place to wind things up. So, Dane, how can our listeners find out more about you?
DaneTomas.com. Thomas with a Tomas, no H involved at all. That's the easiest place. You can also friend me on Facebook if you're that way inclined. I do a lot of stuff through Facebook. I'm trying to break Facebook,
Anyway,
that's a whole other thing.
It is.
But yeah, the website / Facebook, they're the easiest places.
And is there anything particular that you want to point them to and invite them to check out of your work?
Look, for the man on Facebook, I facilitate very loosely using the term facilitate. I just have a sort of self-facilitating men's circle called the Integrated Men's Circle. So if you want to be part of something online, there's a lot of them online, but not that many that I've been in are very good. And what I mean by good is just honest, vulnerable sharing, like a men's circle. So I have one of those online. It's just /IM circle. That's an awesome place if you're a man and you want to be part of something like that. And yeah, just go to the website. I've got books coming out. I've got a new book, The Integrated Man, coming out in about 2 months.
Great.
2 existing books are already up there, The Conscious Hustle and Clear Your Shit. And pretty much everything about me is on the website, and there's raps and spoken word poetry and writings and other stuff up there. So if you like my vibe, you can check it out.
Awesome. Clearly, I recommend it. It's really been a pleasure. You've got it's so clear how committed you've been to your path.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's both a breadth of material that you've clearly scoured and taken into you, as well as a depth that you've gone into it, and the way in which you've integrated these wide variety of perspectives, and as well as the eloquence with which you express it. It's I'm certainly impressed, and I'd happily send anybody your way. So
thanks, man.
Please do check them out. And this has been The Evolved Masculine, redefining sex, power, and success. Tune in next week. Peace.